much for being so patient. So let's move on to the question and answer period. We have plenty of time to discuss this thing, and the format that I would like to do is to just, people have raised their hand, ask the question directed to our esteemed speakers. So, this gentleman right there. And you can come up here, or you can just...
I think I'll speak loud. I just want to focus on larger geopolitical trends. The Shanghai Cooperation Council has been in operation for about 5 years, gradually implementing cooperation between Russia and China, primarily with India having observer status, and with Iran playing a very low-profile role. They don't want to raise their red flag. Now, Pakistan is right in between there. Like you mentioned, it used to be Russia, or Soviet Union and India, with Pakistan and China as being contrary alliances. But I mean, is this going to make Pakistan be even more important as an outpost of U.S. imperialism in order to be a countervailing trend to the Shanghai Cooperation Council that's gradually developing? And maybe a subsidiary question, like the Baluchis, or Baluchistan divided between Pakistan and Iran. Do Baluchis consider themselves to be Pakistanis in Pakistan? Or are they more like the Kurds, which are kind of divided, both bounded by two, like the PKK, which is going to be considered to be a terrorist organization, both bounded, and they're anti-Iranian Kurds, who are not considered to be both bounded by the same guy. But I just wonder if there's an analogy there, what kind of internal relations are between the different ethnic groups within Pakistan, and especially relations with Iran.
Answer that.
You talked about Shanghai Cooperation Council, and you talked about whether Pakistan would be the main dominant American policy in the region. Let me answer this question a bit indirectly. Who benefits from this war on terror, and who benefits from terrorism in Pakistan? The two beneficiaries, of course, are either the American Pentagon or the Pakistani GHQ. Look at it from the American perspective, Pentagon's perspective. The center of gravity, geopolitical gravity, is shifting away from the United States to Eurasia. There's Russia, there is China, there is Iran. It has been struggling, the United States has been struggling to build up India. But because of painful democracy in India, that's not about to happen in the next few years, at least. So in the meanwhile, the United States has to be in the region. And therefore, it's a very interesting question that we need to ask ourselves, that where does this whole reference to Pakistan as a failed state, this whole dialogue is coming from? All this thing about Pakistan being divided, Pakistan being threatened and devoured by religious extremists is coming from. You scratch beneath the surface and you see that, the question that you ask, especially if you look at the election results and all right, the people did not necessarily go and vote for this, even for the Islamic parties, even in a very conservative province like Frontier. So what is happening? If people are not extremists, then who is supporting the extremism? How is it functioning? And, at the risk of almost sounding like a conspiracy theorist, I would say that a perception which is being encouraged is that there is this war which divides Pakistani society. And what it does is strengthens military action and military presence in all forms and shapes. So to answer your question, would Pakistan in the short to medium term be a conduit of American policy? Then that's what appears to be the case. Your second question about what is happening in Balochistan and how Balochi people feel. See, the main tension between different ethnic communities in Pakistan is primarily because of the relationship, peculiar peculiar relationship between the center and the federating units. Since the 1973 Constitution, the provincial autonomy and fiscal autonomy, more importantly, has never been devolved to the provinces. We talk about it, we never do it. The federal consolidated fund in Pakistan is very important, is very powerful. We have never thought about pushing down that power, shifting the power, fiscal autonomy, from the federal consolidated fund to the provincial consolidated fund. In simple and plain English, it means that all the provinces get to keep the monies that they earn from the resources that they have. And then they negotiate, come together and decide upon what the center ought to do and what responsibilities the center would have. It's a very complex kind of an idea. It's easier said than done, because what it means is that the whole objective of the state will need to be critically reformatted and restructured and rethought out. How does the Balochi feel? What is threat to him? What does a Sindhi feel? What does a guy from the frontier feel? What does a guy from Punjab, from South Punjab feel, or Central Punjab feel? Threat is always top down. That's how it has come traditionally. People will be defining security. People will have ownership of their security, and that is what will ease the tension between different ethnic communities. I would quickly give the example of South Africa. When the new dispensation, at the end of the apartheid, when the new dispensation took over South Africa, we rarely talk about it. One of the first things that they did was have conducted a survey, sought people's opinion on what kind of security they wanted, what did they want out of the security establishment. And the entire security sector was then reformatted, made more responsive to what the people needed. And that is precisely what we need to do. Specifically on Balochistan, see, I do not necessarily see that majority of Balochis want to opt out of Pakistan. I think that is a misrepresentation of facts. What the Balochis have been asking for is greater share, greater autonomy, greater control of their resources. For example, Gabadar, that's the new seaport that has been developed in the area around it. Now, a very easy thing for the government of Pakistan would have been to build stakes of the Baloch middle class in those projects, in those real estate development projects. That was not done. They would have then stood up and fought the war even against the tribal leaders. That was not done. In fact, what happened was, again in a very top-down fashion, the federal government said, the center said, I'm going to decide how we're going to develop this region. The same is happening in other parts of the country as well. Pakistan today is a very consolidated country that way. Sindhis, yes, everywhere you will have a small group which complains, which grips more than the rest of the population. The Sindhis, the Baloch, even to a large extent the Pashtuns are at peace with being wherever they are. All we need to do is that instead of looking at those who are complaining more critically, using direct oppression against them, include them in a discussion and change the nature of relations between the center and the federating units, and also between the federating